And today, this session is specifically about how better can we position ourselves in the express entry system to solicit an invitation to apply. Perhaps that is a complicated way of saying, how can I better my express entry scores to qualify and to warrant an invitation to apply? Okay, now you guys must have, anybody keeping track of the Canadian system? On the 13th of Feb 2021, which is just a few days back, IRCC did an epic draw, and it invited about 27,332 applicants. So there were 27,332 invitations to apply that were given out to various aspirants wanting to come to Canada, but that was a specific CEC draw. So it was a Canadian Experience Class draw, which means anybody who had been in Canada for at least, or anybody who had at least a year's worth of work experience in Canada was targeted. And those were the candidates who were invited to apply. And the minimum CRS score or profile score in that draw was just 75. It's the lowest score ever. So that itself is Canada's emphasis on people who are here already to allow them to be able to reside seamlessly. Okay, so that was the last IRCC draw on the 13th of February, just a few days back. So it was it created a bit of murmur even here, because that was such an interesting draw with the lowest profile score or the lowest CRS score of 75, which means somebody just needed to have 12 months of work experience in Canada and have some sort of a profile score of 75, which is really, really easy. So, coming into Canada is becoming an interesting prospect. And just to start off with some figures, every year, right, Canada has a target to bring in people. And for the year 2021, the new year that we've started, the target is about 401,000. So it's roughly always around the 400,000 mark every year. And this year is 401,000. And out of the 401,000, which is the number of immigrants Canada wants, about 108,500 of them will come through the express entry system. So the express entry pathway is an important one. And a lot of people use the express entry system as the quickest and the most convenient way of coming to Canada. So it is imperative that we know of this particular system, the process, and how we can possibly improve our scores in the express entry system. Okay. Yes, on YouTube as well. Yes, please. Yes, if you have questions, you can put it in the comment section, and I will punctuate this session with trying to come with as many answers to the questions that you have. All right, so on the point of improving your express entry score, what can possibly be done? So there are some short-term methods, and there are some short-term ways of trying to improve your express entry score. And then there are some things that happen over the longer term, both of which we will discuss in this session. All right, so everyone, welcome. I see more and more people joining on Facebook as well as on YouTube. By way of introduction, my name is Srijana. I am the AJV specialist based out of Toronto in Canada. And I specialize in all Canadian immigration pathways, and I am more than happy to share whatever little knowledge and information I have to make the entire process fruitful and a very professional one for you. AJV, as you know, we have established a lot of credibility in the New Zealand market, but with me and my work in Canada, it is AJV's foray into the Canadian landscape. So in addition to New Zealand, we are now also going to help people in the Canadian system. And if any of you guys after this session are intrigued about your prospects to Canada, what can I do? What is my score? How can I associate with a professional? Please reach out to us, and I can then communicate with you and provide you some sort of a customized plan for your profile and how best can you get into Canada in the most time-effective manner. that can be discussed. Okay, so today's session is about how to improve your express entry score. And we are looking at, like I said, short-term as well as long-term methods of bettering your express entry points so that you better your chances of getting an invitation to apply. So the first way, of course, is to claim points that are obviously there, inherent in the system for you to claim. So the first one would be, if you've heard about the family in Canada aspects. If you or your spouse have immediate brothers or sisters or siblings in Canada, you get 15 extra points in the CRS tool or in the CRS calculator. So if you have immediate family in Canada, it's only immediate family, guys, not extended, so not sort of cousins and uncles and aunts. It is immediate brother and sister. If you or your spouse have immediate family members in Canada, you get 15 extra points. So make sure that if that is the case, that you're entering details correctly and that you claim points for siblings, in Canada. All right. Now, the second important point is education. So if you have any higher secondary certificate, diploma, that even if you've done years back, say, for example, I work in HR, but I did a software engineering or a coding certificate or a diploma years back, that's not related to my job anymore. Can I claim points for it in the express entry system? And the answer to that is yes. The qualification that you are claiming points for, as long as it's a legitimately completed qualification, it does not have to be related to your studies, or it does not have to be, it doesn't have to be related to your job that you are doing or that you have done, etc. Okay, as long as it is from a valid institution, a course that you have completed, please make sure that you are claiming points for that particular qualification. This is a little bit more pertinent for CEC candidates, or for a lot of you guys who are here already. If anybody is listening to me from within Canada, if you're a CEC candidate and you think, oh, I have work experience in Canada now, I have enough points, and you don't necessarily enter the full details about your academic qualifications, please don't do that. Enter all of your academic qualifications. If you are in India, if you're in any other country, apart from Canada, please get your academic qualifications or your credentials assessed so that you get some sort of a Canadian equivalency. Okay, so no matter what the course, whether it's immediately relevant to what you are doing at the moment professionally, make sure all of it is assessed so that you can claim points in the education section. Okay, now, if any of you have given the CRS calculator a shot, you get significant points if you have 2 or more post-secondary credentials, one of which is a 3-year program. Okay, if you have 2 or more post-secondary credentials, one of which is a 3-year program, which means if you have done anything apart from a bachelor's, in the more sort of Indian context, if I were to speak, if you have done anything more than a bachelor's degree, any certificate course, any diploma that you did years back, you get significant points. And even in the skills transferability department, where you can score a maximum of 100. So don't just stick to, oh, I've done my bachelor's, I've done my master's. But if you have any other certificate course, diploma course, postgraduate diploma, any of it that you might have done, and even if it's been a long while since you completed that and you've worked in different areas since, right, you've ventured into different industries altogether, don't hold back from getting those academic credentials assessed and claiming points for it, because you will get significantly more points if you have 2 or more post-secondary qualifications. Okay, that is an important point. Okay, I'm trying to see if, all right, sure. If I, go along, if there are questions that I can address. Guys, please make sure you keep putting questions. Yeah, so that I'm able to address these. Yes. Okay, after your siblings points for siblings in Canada and education, the third one is second language. A lot of people in India, especially, ask me, is there any value in perhaps learning French? Right, and that is an interesting question because you get significant points for second language. But please make sure that it's not just about knowing French a little bit, or just practicing a little bit at home. You need to give a professional language test before you're able to claim points for it, like you do for English, which is the two tests that are acceptable in the Canadian, migration context is IELTS, which is, of course, the most popular one, either with British Council or IDP. IELTS is one acceptable English language testing system. The other one is CELPIP. I'm not too sure if CELPIP is very, very popular in other countries apart from Canada. CELPIP is a full form, is Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. So it is Canadian English Language Proficiency Index Program. That is CELPIP. So the two tests that are acceptable is IELTS and CELPIP. Please make sure that you give general IELTS and not academic IELTS, because that is what is acceptable as far as the express entry system is concerned. Okay, so it is IELTS and CELPIP. For French, similarly, there are two exams. For the longest time in Canada, actually, there was only one French exam that was acceptable, which is TEF. TEF is the name of the French test that is valid, the results of which are valid for your migration purposes to Canada. The other test, of course, is TCF. So TEF and TCF are the two French language exam results that are acceptable in Canada. A lot of you guys, if you are familiar with the IELTS system, you will know that there are 4 modules, right? Speaking, reading, writing, listening. Similarly, even in TEF and TCF, there will be different modules that will equate to your listening, speaking, reading, writing of IELTS. And for all those 4 subheadings or modules, you will get respective points, and then you can calculate your scores accordingly in the express entry system. So it is extremely valuable. If your question is, I have a question here, how important is French? It's not a must-have when you come to Canada to know French, but since I'm here and I can give you a first-hand perspective, French is an extremely useful language to know in Canada, because a lot of the jobs in Canada, especially if you're looking at some of the government jobs, be it provincial, be it federal government jobs, they're all a bilingual imperative, which means you have to know both English and French to be able to qualify for those jobs. So even if not just for the sake of entering Canada and getting extra points, French is extremely a handy skill set to have, because it will keep you in good stead for as long as you're in Canada, because Canada is a bilingual country, and French and English are used in basically all avenues of life, especially in any sort of public place. If your job is in the public realm or in the government space, French, of course, becomes very, very useful. So IELTS and CELPIP, as far as English is concerned, people ask me if PTE is acceptable. The answer to that is a no. I know in a lot of other countries, as far as migration is concerned, that PTE is accepted, but that isn't the case for Canada. Okay, it has to be IELTS or CELPIP, and for French, TEF or TCF. 8777, that is a wonderful combination to have. If you can absolutely gun for higher scores in all of your IELTS modules, please do that. It will significantly and formidably improve your score. But 8777 is pretty much the minimum that you should be gunning for. 8 in listening, 777 in reading, writing, and speaking. Okay, that should be your aspirational score. And the minimum that you're looking for as far as the IELTS scorecard is concerned. So if you for language, and if you just look at the language portion in the CRS tool calculator, right, you can get as many as 260 points if you're a single applicant, and 270 points for language skills alone if you're applying as a couple. So 260 CRS points for language if you're applying alone, 270 points if you're applying as a couple. So that is a significant chunk of your profile score and of the human index factors. So it is important that you leverage as much of the points as possible. Okay, so make sure that you prepare before you really go ahead and give your language test. I have heard that in a lot of countries there is a bit of a waiting period for IELTS. That might be the case. So also factor in that you will not be able to go and book your IELTS exam. You may not be able to do that. Book your IELTS exam and give it immediately. That there might be a significant waiting time. But I would definitely recommend British Council when you create an account with them, or when you go via the British Council route. They will send you a lot of practice materials that will be helpful for you to use while you're preparing for IELTS. So make sure you book your IELTS slot in advance. It is extremely important that you prepare and treat it with importance and gravity, because there are 260 points to be had as far as language is concerned. For some reason, there is more emphasis on listening. So that is the module that you should be paying most attention to. Listening and good scores on listening have a huge bearing on your overall CRS scores. Okay, so that is about how to improve your scores in the language area. So if you give the exam once and if you think I could better my scores, please don't hesitate to give the English language test again, because there is really no cap on the number of times you can attempt the English language test. So you can keep bettering your scores, you can keep going back and trying better in, if you're a particular module, or say, for example, for a lot of people, writing is the pain point, right? They don't necessarily score as well in writing because, of course, in today's day and age, we're not writing, as much at all. So if it's just writing, or for some people, they get nervous when they have to speak to another person, or they get this awkward topic that they're not necessarily, fluent in. So if there are, nuances like that, and if you want to better your score in just one module, you have to give the entire IELTS test again. So if you need to better your scores, please go back and reattempt your English language score so that you get as many points in that particular section. Okay. The other important point, of course, is more long term, right? How can you improve your express entry profile or points in general? And one of the key areas is to gain more work experience, either in a foreign country, or if you're in Canada, better still, right? Because there are significant points for Canadian work experience. So to get more professional experience is one way of bettering your profile. Now, 1 year of professional full-time paid work experience is what you need to enter the express entry system, but you get maximum points if you have foreign work experience for 3 years or more. Okay, so foreign work experience, you can your profile will be significantly emboldened better, or you will get more points if you have work experience of 3 years or more. For Canada, of course, 12 months of work experience if you're in Canada already, that will give you significant points for work experience in Canada. But if you are someone who's out of college, you have two or more higher, you have two or more degrees or diplomas or post-secondary educational qualifications, and you're just starting off in the workforce, there might be significant value in getting your work experience to at least 3 years in a foreign country before you can leverage as many points in the work experience department as possible. If you are in Canada, of course, in the CRS tool, it'll ask you how many years you've been in Canada, the more the better. So another way of improving your express entry profile or your score is to increase the number of years of work experience that you have. Okay, you get maximum points for 3 years or more. Okay. Sure, guys. Sorry, I'm looking at yeah, I'm looking at some questions. Okay. A lot of people are asking about okay. Okay. Okay, so somebody has asked about what is the cost of applying fee for express entry. So if you are talking about government fees for express entry, government fee for express entry is $1,325. That's just what you pay the government at the end when you're applying for PR. It's $1,325, which includes your processing fee as well as something which is known as the right of permanent residence fee. So processing fee is $825, right of permanent residence fee is $500. And if you include your spouse or partner, of course, it's another 1,325, and it is 225 for every dependent child, $225. So that is the cost for express entry. If you're asking about government fee only. Is there any express entry program for New Zealand? Guys, this is a Canada specific session, but of course, New Zealand has something known as SMC, skilled migration category. So every country pretty much has, if not the exact express entry system, it will have an equivalent of that process. Shahid Ali Khan asked, does Canada accept PTE for PR visa? The answer to that is a no. Canada will accept IELTS and CELPIP. The most popular one among migrants is IELTS, and it can be both British Council or IDP IELTS. Alex Vagela says, I want to go ahead with my application for Canada. Alex, please leave your contact details behind. Anybody who's interested in checking their Canadian prospects, or if you want to see, I want to see where I stand. I want to see if if there's any benefit to be got in trying for Canada. Please leave your contact details behind so that we can get back to you, and then I can follow it up with a call that is customized to your situation. Because in a session like this, I can't get to the specifics of your profile. So please leave your phone number, email ID behind, so that I can get back to you, and then we can have a more tailored conversation that is specific to you and your profile. Okay. How much time it takes for express entry? Shubi Agarwal asks, how much time does it take for express entry? As far as the time factor is concerned, Shubi, it really depends on your profile score. If you enter the pool and then your profile score is exactly what the government wants in its draw, you will get your invitation to apply immediately. So how much time it takes for the invitation to apply is a very subjective thing, because it really depends on your score. If your score is 450 and the government does a draw at 450, you will get your invitation to apply in that same draw. And then once you get your invitation to apply, you have about 60 days to put in your PR application, to get all of your documents together, to put your file in place. And then once you put in your PR application, PR processing timeframes, or if you apply to any visa office around, Canadian visa office around the world, they are taking about 6 months to process the PR application. So even with COVID, that time, the processing time frame hasn't swayed significantly, which is great, because it's still taking only about 6 months to process the PR application once you put in your application and all of the details. Okay. So, yep, those were some questions. If you have more questions, guys, keep yeah, keep posting questions, and I will punctuate my session with taking as many questions like we just did. Okay. Yes, how much time, Shubhi, is, yeah, that was the answer to your question. 6 months after you apply. Before that, it really, really depends on your profile score. So it's a very subjective matter. Okay, so we were talking about long-term express entry score increase prospects. And I said one is to gain as many years of experience. So you get points for maximum points for 3 years or more of professional work experience. If you don't have that amount, work towards getting to that 3 or more year mark. The other way of getting bettering your scores, of course, is to get a PNP nomination. So a provincial nomination certificate or a provincial nomination invitation or letter, whatever you might want to call it, will give you 600 extra points. So that is a significant addition to your CRS points. But of course, bear in mind that PNP is, you have to apply to individual provinces. They have different criteria. Sometimes the PNP draw scores are not very different from the federal draw scores. So, you might still need to have a very, very high express entry profile score. But if you apply to provinces, some of the North Atlantic provinces don't necessarily require you to have, offer of employment, etc. But you will have to match your profile with what exactly the province is looking for. So you have to look at individual provinces and their application criteria or their criteria for providing a provincial nomination letter or a program. So, but if the province is able to look at your profile and say, yep, this is good for us, and then they give you a provincial nomination letter, certificate / invitation, you get 600 extra points. So, which is unquestionably, going to be your gateway for entry into Canada. So, once you get a provincial nomination program, you wait for a PNP draw, which happens quite a bit. In the year 2020, Canada did a whole lot of CEC and PNP draws as compared to sort of a general open for all FSW draw, and that is because they wanted to facilitate the entry of people who already had support from provinces, right? Who already had some sort of a Canadian work experience. So in the year, if I want to go back to figures, in the year 2020, there were 36 rounds of invitation. 36 rounds of invitation in 2020, but the majority of them were draws that were related to the Canadian Experience Class or the Provincial Nomination Program. So it is, that is why it's very beneficial, and more people are looking to PNP nominations, or they are looking at the study to reside pathway, which has become a more vetted way of entering Canada, because you study in Canada, and then once you complete your course from a DLI or a designated learning institute in Canada, you qualify for a PGWP, postgraduate work permit. Okay, you qualify for a postgraduate work permit, and then your postgraduate work permit allows you to gather that valuable work experience in Canada. And once you gather 12 months of work experience in Canada, you will be eligible to apply under Canadian Experience Class CEC. Remember, at the very start of the session, I said on the 13th of February, about 27,332 applicants were invited. And that was a CEC draw. And the minimum CRS score was only 75. So all you needed to be was in Canada with 1 year of experience, and you would have pretty much gotten residence. It would have been a cakewalk. So that's why more and more people are considering the study to reside pathway in Canada, because it's becoming a more vetted way of coming and residing and getting your PR here. Okay. Another way of bettering your points is, it's difficult, but if you can do it, it's great for you, which is getting a Canadian job offer. So sitting in India, if you can connect with employers on LinkedIn, look at various job portals, or you can even get your company to possibly work out a Canadian transfer. So having arranged employment in Canada will give you significant points, between 50 to 200 points, depending on what the nature of the job is that you have received in Canada. So, or the nature of the offer that you have arranged for. So, if it is a professional job in NOC code 0AB, you get significant points. The points range between 50 to 200 points, depending on what level and what really the specifics of the job are. But if you have arranged employment in Canada, it's pretty much certain that your score is going to go up significantly, and that you are in some way or the other going to get an invitation to apply, because it just lifts your profile in a way that is extremely beneficial. So getting a job offer, but please guys, this is one area where a lot of applicants, candidates get tricked into paying someone who says, oh, I'm going to get a job offer for you in Canada, or oh, I know of an employer who'll send you the job offer. It's not as easy as it sounds. If you are looking for jobs in Canada, and if it sounds too good to be true, it possibly is too good to be true, because a job offer, before an employer let's say, gives out a job offer to a foreign national, that employer has to prove to the government or this department known as ESDC, Employment and Social Development Canada, that there was no Canadian PR or citizen who was good enough for that job. That is a very elaborate process, okay, because the government is trying to protect the rights of its permanent residents and citizens. So for employers, it is imperative that they interview permanent residents and citizens who apply to that job. Every single PR citizen will have to be interviewed, and then they have to prove to the government that they didn't do well, that they had posted the job sites in job in 4 different job sites, and that going through the rigors of that process with ESDC is a very difficult one. And so all employers will have to go through it and then get a positive assessment. So the government will have to say, okay, we agree with you that there was no PR or citizen who was good enough to do the job. You can now give this job to a foreign worker. Only then can they actually offer that job to a foreign worker. So, if somebody in Canada is telling you, oh, I'll give you a job offer or pay me whatever, 2 lakh, 5 lakh rupees, be wary of things like this, because a job offer is not easy to come by, especially in today's COVID environment, where a lot of people who are here on valid permanent resident visas, etc., are already scavenging for jobs, and they are going through a tough time trying to land a job. Forget about the ideal job or the dream job or the job of my absolute choice. Even landing a job is difficult. So that job being offered to a foreign worker is, it's a very unique situation. So please do not fall prey to anyone trying to give you a ready-made offer letter in Canada. But if you do get a genuine offer of employment from Canada, or if you can say, yes, I have arranged for an offer of employment that is genuine, it's a legitimate company, they're going to give you full-time work, and they're going to pay you, whatever the minimum provincial standards are for a job of that knock code, then you can claim points in the CRS calculator between 50 to 200. So it's going to lift your profile significantly. Okay, adding your spouse. A lot of people ask me, is it better if I apply individually, or is it better if I add my spouse to my profile? That is again, it's a subjective matter. Okay, now as far as spouse is concerned, and anybody who's listening to me right now, if you have a partner, husband, wife, etc., please listen to this section carefully. For spouse, okay, there are 3 areas that your spouse is going to help you in terms of points. One is language. So for your spouse's language skills, English language skills, French language skills, if he or she knows both, even better. For language skills, your spouse is going to get you 20 points. For the education level of the spouse, you're going to get 10 points. And for a Canadian, if your spouse has Canadian work experience, another 10 points. So clubbed together, spousal factors, or the credentials of your spouse or your partner, the points to be had are 40, or the points to be claimed are 40 points. So you will get points for your spouse's language, spouse's education level, and if your spouse has Canadian work experience. Okay, so depending on the profile of your spouse, can you claim points for these? It either makes sense to add your spouse or not. So you will know that best. Okay, sometimes the spouse has fantastic academic credentials. Say, for example, a husband and wife, both of them have master's degrees that have been assessed. Both of them have 8777 in IELTS. Fantastic situation. It makes sense for the spouse to be added to the profile. But if the spouse is not very confident with the IELTS, or if the academic credentials are not significant, then it makes sense for one person to apply alone, or for two different express entry profiles. That is another way of doing this as well. The husband and wife, or the two people in a partnership, can create two different profiles, and then whoever gets the invitation then can be the first person, and then the second person can then later join that person as a spouse. That's one way of doing it. But if your spouse has fantastic credentials, English language, and education, okay, there are only three things that matter as far as the spouse is concerned: English language, academic credentials, work experience in Canada, which in most cases there will not be any work experience in Canada. So English language and education. So if your spouse has fantastic credentials, please add it. It does not mean that if you are applying alone, or if you're single, you lose out on the 40 points. Please listen to this carefully. If you're single, if you're applying as an individual applicant, it doesn't mean that you've lost out on the 40 spousal points. It means that it gets redistributed in your profile, and then you claim it in different ways as an individual applicant. So single applicants or single people do not lose out. They claim it within their own abilities. That's the way to put it. That single applicants claim it in their own abilities. So that is my answer with regard to spouse, and I hope that's a helpful tip. Ezekiel D'Souza asks, if someone already has postgraduate degree or MBA from India, does it still make sense studying a PG course in Canada? Ezekiel, if you have an MBA from India already, please make sure that both your graduate degree and your postgraduate/MBA degree are assessed by WES in Canada. If your MBA is assessed as being equivalent to a Canadian master's, and if you can claim points for it, it's great. If they devalue it, or sometimes what happens is a lot of master's degrees that are completed in India, guys, they are assessed as being equivalent to a PG diploma only in Canada. So you can't really claim points for a master's degree, because Canada has said this is only equivalent to a postgraduate diploma. So if you do not have enough points, or for some reason if your express entry score isn't enough, then it would make sense doing a PG course in Canada, because then you're looking at a completely different study to decide pathway. So if you have completed your qualifications in India, you have a master's degree, you have work experience, if all of that in combination is enough to get you to a profile score of about, say, 470, that's what the draw scores are hovering around, then it's great. If not, it makes sense to do another qualification in Canada and come here as a student, because that 1 year of investment in Canada, it gives you real opportunity to build networks, to to build this whole interactive ecosystem around you that is very helpful as far as finding a job is concerned. That versus just landing here as a PR and then having to navigate a new country, a new landscape, while you don't have to invest any money at all in studying, etc. But from a lot of people that I've spoken to, studying in Canada and investing that 1 year does become it does become completely worth it, because in that 1 year you are going to get more acquainted with the Canadian system. The college is going to put you in touch with employers. The fact that you have Canadian qualification, you are definitely going to get more interview calls compared to the other crowd that has no Canadian exposure at all. So studying in Canada is definitely a worthwhile exercise. I already have my ECA, but I pursued MBA later on, says Ezekiel. No, then you have to get your MBA assessed and get your ECA done again only for your MBA. A lot of people who have a master's degree, Ezekiel, do another postgraduate diploma in Canada. So you are definitely not in the minority. And as long as you can justify to a visa officer who might call you at the time of processing your application, you will be fine. There is no, oh, you can't study this and you can't study that, or now you're already overqualified. But there are no broad instructions or tenets like this. It's a very individual choice to study. I mean, some people study even after a PhD. So it's such an individual thing. uh, Explain on fully funded scholarship for Canada Masters. Rahul, I did a session on the study program and scholarships uh, in one of my earlier sessions, and that was completely on study visas, scholarships, etc. So please, you can either listen to my session, or if you just do a Google search on scholarships, there are lots of Indo-Canadian scholarships. Like the Shastri Foundation Scholarship is the more popular one. But there are two ways of applying for scholarships. You can apply to the institute of your choice, which is going to be merit based. So the institute is going to give you a scholarship, if you have great academic credentials. The other one is to apply for generic Indo-Canadian scholarships. So these are open to anyone from India, or other countries might have such scholarship programs as well. So there are many scholarships available. Please do a general search. If you have great academic credentials, it also makes sense to apply for scholarships to the institute of your choice. You might get a partial scholarship, if not a fully funded one. Okay. Okay. I'm just, guys, I'm just scrolling through comments. Okay. I also have a team member who's assisting me. Um, yes, please, if you have questions, please put them down. Please appreciate the fact that I will not be able to discuss individual profiles. But if there is a question that will benefit the crowd at large, I will definitely take it up. Okay, so moving ahead with the session, guys, I discussed about spouse, and let me reiterate that for the spouse, please encourage your spouse to prepare for IELTS and to give the IELTS exam, or make sure that the spouse's academic credentials are also assessed along with yours. Okay, if your spouse has completed a bachelor's or a postgraduate diploma in addition, or has a master's degree, that would be ideal. Make sure that you have it assessed. Because in tandem, you might actually be able to get more points. Okay, so yes. Okay, do you have to? There's a question here around, do I have to add my spouse to the application? That has already been discussed. You don't have to. When you are in the CRS tool, it'll ask you, are you single, married, or what your relationship status is? And if you say married, it'll ask you, the next question is, will your spouse be accompanying you to Canada? So it'll be a yes or a no. You can definitely put no if you want just your individual profile, and if you do not want your spouse credentials added, you can put no and then just proceed with your credentials alone. That is definitely a provision. Two people, if a husband and wife, can have two different profiles in the express entry system, and whichever one is better will then, I guess, get the invitation to apply, and the other person can follow suit as the dependent spouse. That's definitely one way of looking at it. Okay, any idea when the next express entry will be? If you are Vishnu, if you're asking about the next draw, draws happen bi-weekly in Canada. So every 2 weeks, the federal government does one draw. So they should be, another. The last one was the 13th of Feb. 13th of Feb was an epic one where 27,332 applicants were invited. The lowest CRS score was only 75. So that was, it's never happened that, someone with as low a profile score as 75 was invited. But if you're wondering, oh, I have 450, why was I not invited? This was a CEC draw, a Canadian experience class. That means it was only for people who have a year's work experience in Canada. So the next draw will be in another 2 weeks approximately, but it may not be a general FSW draw, because it might be more a CEC or a PNP draw, and that's been the trend in 2020. Vishnu, if I were to give you a few details, in the year 2020 there were 36 invitation rounds, and the majority of them were actually CEC and PNP draws. So while the draw frequency is bi-weekly, the federal government decides what kind of draw is to happen. So a lot of times it might be just PNP draws. That means anybody who has a provincial nomination invitation is eligible, or more often than not, it is a CEC draw. That means for people in Canada with experience. So that's with regard to frequency of draws. How much time for express entry? That question has been answered already. 6 months processing time after you put in your PRE APR application for permanent residence. But before that, it is completely subjective, because it really depends on when you get that vital invitation to apply, and that really depends on your profile score. Yes, guys. Anybody wanting to pursue their sort of Canadian, I guess, if that's aspirational to you, if you want to come to Canada and see, oh, do I have a chance, or what can I do, or which pathway, if not this, please contact us and we can review your profiles individually, and I can do a much more customized, detailed individual call. So leave your contact details and your email ID behind. But quickly to summarize, in today's session, we talked about how better can you position yourself in the express entry system, or what are the ways of bettering your overall CRS score. And there were many short-term as well as more longer-term methods available to do that. In the more shorter-term approaches, we talked about claiming points for, if you have siblings, if you or your spouse have immediate brothers or sisters or siblings in Canada. The other thing was education in Canada, to make sure that all of your post-secondary qualifications are looked at by WES and you get some sort of an assessment, even if it's not related to your work experience, even if it was a diploma that you did a long time back that you haven't used at all. There is value in getting all of your academic credentials assessed and looked at, because you will be able to claim points for some of these qualifications, and that makes a ton of a difference, even in the adaptability area. Having at least 2 or more post-secondary qualifications, one of which is for 3 years, that makes a world of difference. So make sure all of your academic credentials are assessed. If some of you are looking to do an additional degree or diploma program, go ahead with it. If you have the time, if you have the inclination, the resources, it makes sense to get a qualification from an institute of reasonable repute that will be assessed positively. Go ahead and do that. That's definitely one way of improving your score. The other thing is language. As we discussed already, there are 260 CRS points to be got in the language area if you're applying alone, 270 CRS points in the English language area if you're applying as a couple. So make sure that you are leveraging as many of these points as possible to your advantage. So do IELTS, please. If you know French, the 2 exams to be attempted are TEF and TCF. These are very, very popular French exams. And if you are, if you're in India and if you're planning to learn French now, well, it might be difficult because the TEF French exam, guys, is not easy. TEF is Test d'Évaluation du Français, which is the French test. So if any of you guys know French, make sure you give the TEF or the TCF exam. If you do not get the IELTS score of your choice, please go back and redo it. There's absolutely no shame in having to reattempt it and better your scores. Make sure that your listening scores are top notch, because that's the module that is the most important. 8777 is the minimum score that you should be attempting. Okay, and long term, of course, is there's gaining more work experience, getting a PNP nomination, which will give you 600 extra points, and to also try and get a Canadian job offer and to better your spousal points. Okay, so these were all the short term as well as the more long term approaches to bettering your express entry score. I will come back to you, in the weeks ahead with more such sessions on specific programs. We might have a little bit of PNP discussion next, but thank you for your participation in this particular session. It's been a great way for me to start my morning interacting with all of you. And if you want us to have a look at your profile individually, like I said, please leave your contact details behind. All right. So guys, thank you for giving me an hour of your time. And I look forward to coming up with more interactive videos in the future and building, just more conversation and rapport around the Canadian visa process. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it, and have a good rest of the evening, day, whichever part of the world you're in. Thank you.